What is an average dinner for the family?
Well, I cook a pot of beans and fry some potatoes, some corn or something like that.
There was a time in America when opening the kitchen cabinet didn't bring comfort. It brought uncertainty. No shelves packed with snacks, no freezer full of choices. Just a few scraps, maybe a sack of potatoes, and one quiet question every parent carried. How do I turn this into dinner? And somehow, they did. Not with cookbooks, not with trendy recipes, but with instinct, with sacrifice, with a kind of creativity most people today have never had to learn. Because during the Great Depression and the war years, dinner wasn't about what you wanted. It was about what you could stretch. And here's the part that's hard to imagine now. Some of the most comforting foods in American history were born when families had almost nothing. Meals without meat that still felt filling. Desserts without milk, without eggs, sometimes without real flavor. Soups made from scraps most people today wouldn't think twice about throwing away. And yet, people didn't remember these meals as miserable. They remembered them as warm, familiar, even special. Because those dishes carried something far more powerful than ingredients. They carried survival. They carried pride. They carried the quiet determination of a generation that refused to waste anything, not even hope. If you've ever heard your grandparents talk about making do, then you already understand. Food wasn't just food. It was proof. Proof that you could get through another day. And if even a small part of this feels familiar, then you're going to want to keep watching. Because this story goes far deeper than recipes. Hidden inside these simple meals were forgotten habits, secret tricks, and choices that would go on to reshape the entire American food system. And what happened next might completely change the way you look at your own kitchen. It didn't happen slowly. It happened almost overnight. One day, American families had routines, regular meals, a sense of stability. The next day, it was gone. The stock market crash of 1929 didn't just shake Wall Street. It reached into kitchens, into cupboards, onto dinner plates. Paychecks disappeared. Farms failed. And for millions, the question changed. Not, what's for dinner, but, is there dinner at all? And this is where the real story begins. Because there were no safety nets, no easy answers, no backup plans waiting in the background. Just ordinary people forced to become something extraordinary. Mothers who never measured a thing, now stretching a handful of ingredients across an entire week. Fathers who once provided full meals, sitting quietly as portions got smaller. Children learning early not to ask for seconds, because sometimes there wasn't even a first. And just as families began to adapt, things got tighter, harder, more controlled. War made everything more complicated. Ration books replaced freedom. Sugar, butter, meat. Limited, counted, controlled. Every ounce mattered. Every scrap had value. Kitchens became something else entirely. Not just a place to cook, but a place to strategize. Peels were saved. Bones were reused. Broth was stretched as far as it could go. Nothing was wasted, not even a drop. But here's what most people never hear about. This wasn't just survival. It was transformation. Without recognition, an entire generation started inventing a new kind of cooking in real time. Techniques shared in whispers, meals built from memory. Dishes designed not just to taste good, but to last, to carry families through. And something strange across different cities, different cultures, different languages. The same kinds of meals kept showing up again and again because they worked. They filled stomachs. They kept families going. But that's where things take an unexpected turn. Because out of all this hardship came something, not forgettable meals, but something deeply comforting, strangely familiar, and powerful enough to be remembered decades later. What happened next would turn these desperate creations into the foundation of what Americans now call comfort food. And then, something no one expected happened. Those meals, the ones born out of desperation, they didn't disappear. When the hardest years of the Great Depression finally eased, and America stepped into the late 1940s and 1950s, those same simple dishes came back. But this time, it wasn't about survival. It was about memory. Families didn't cook them because they had to. They cooked them because they couldn't let them go. Because those meals carried something deeper now. A quiet reminder of what they had made it through. A kind of warmth that expensive food couldn't replace. And that's where things get interesting. Because beneath what many call America's golden era, there was a hidden world inside the kitchen, one most people today wouldn't even recognize. Desserts made from almost nothing. Soups that never really ended, just stretched and added to day after day. Even scraps, peels, bones, leftovers, turned into something that still brought a family to the table. It sounds unthinkable now, but back then, throwing food away felt wrong, almost unthinkable. Because every ingredient had a story. Every meal had meaning. Food wasn't just about taste. It was about respect, about resourcefulness, about remembering where you came from. But just as these traditions settled into everyday life, something new started creeping in. Quiet at first, easy to miss. It didn't look dangerous. It looked convenient, modern. That's what made it so powerful. What happened next didn't just change how Americans cooked. It changed how they thought about food. Forever.
At first, it felt like a miracle. Shelves filled up, almost overnight.
Meals came in boxes, in cans, in frozen trays, faster, easier, cleaner. For the first time, families didn't have to stretch ingredients. They didn't have to save scraps. The struggle that defined a generation seemed like it was finally over. But something else disappeared with it, quietly, almost invisibly. And most people didn't notice until it was already gone. The slow cooking, the careful hands, the instinct to never waste a single thing. Kitchens changed. They stopped being places of survival and became places of convenience. And that shift changed more than anyone expected. Because food lost something along the way. Something you can't measure. Something you can't package. Meaning. When nothing is scarce, nothing feels sacred. But ask someone who remembers those earlier days and listen closely to what they say. They don't start with hunger. They start with warmth, a simple meal cooking all day, a table where even the smallest portion was shared. Those meals held families together in ways convenience never could. And maybe that's what changed the most. Not just what America eats, feels when it eats. So now the real question isn't what was lost. It's this. Do we even realize it's gone? And more importantly, do you?